Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Printing's Alive with me, Warren Werbitt, your host, where we talk everything print, whatever print, or anything anybody wants to talk. So today we have, I continue with my distinguished guests. Today we have Mark Potter from Conduit Inc. How you doing, Mark?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm always good, thanks. Appreciate you taking the time to come on and participate in the call.
Absolutely. I mean, if anything, if this goes as well as our pre-call,
Yeah.
it might be a half a day.
Might be. Yeah, we had a little call before we started that kind of took up half the time of the call, so we'll have to stretch this one. So glad you could join. You have Conduit Inc. Tell us a little bit about that first, and then we'll move on to the world of print.
Sure. So our little business is probably blossomed into a full-blown marketing content agency. And we've really added a lot of stuff over the years. I can't believe it's been 18 years, I think, since I started this thing. I started it by launching Canvas magazine, and everybody, I'll never forget when people said, "You're going to launch a printed magazine in the printing industry?" And they looked at me like I was nuts. And I really just kind of committed to kind of doing what I believed in, inspirational stuff, the kind of content that people really want to read, stories about them, if you will. And so it blossomed after the recession. I kind of took the hits through the recession and kept going. And I'll never forget that my wife, I remember my wife looking at me like, this is kind of a slog here. After the first year, it was kind of good. I used to run marketing for Unisource, and I was able to kind of parlay that into getting it going. And then the recession hit, and I remember sleeping with one eye open for a bit. But it was doing that right stuff that kind of catapulted us to a different place. And so we came through on the other side, and people really kind of liked it. And then we had a lot of people asking us if we would do content for them. And that's when it started to blossom. So today we do content in a variety of forms, but highlighted by printed magazines in a lot of different verticals. And it is my baby. It's my life's work. And the best thing about it is it's me, because it's what I love to do, which is listening and having conversations kind of like this. And it's kind of been a really I don't know. It's my it's been a blessing. Let's just say that.
Yeah, no, first of all, I think the magazine's great, and I've been watching pretty much, I think, from the beginning. But our first, I forget where we first met, but obviously print. And then we started doing a little work, and that I was receiving from you the Connect magazine.
Yeah.
That's right. Which was, for anyone listening, Connect, they put together a 16-pager, and it was just on the latest information and stories and whatever else went into it. And then you would slip your own, as the printer, you would slip your own ads in, and you could then mail it out as if it was your piece. And you would take the editor's page at the front, which was written by Mark, and you would put your own name on it, which was great. And I mean, where I was English French, so I had to take a 16-page, turn it into a 32-page, and then I had to do the translation. So an inexpensive marketing kit ended up costing a lot of money. But no one was doing that. Like, you started that. No one was really doing that. And when we would send it out, we had some customers who were just like blown away at the level of which we were thinking in putting this out. And I would tell everyone I didn't write it. Like, that'd be outright lying, and I'm not into that. I said, but we are the guys who put it to, went to the right place that puts it together, because we got to relay information. So
Yeah.
And how's that going today? Is it still going?
It's still going. It's great. It's probably one of my favorite things that we do. we've been fortunate, won a bunch of awards for it. The beauty of it is that it checks a lot of boxes, right? So the content for that one, for example, is all marketing based, which is near and dear to my heart. So, and that's who printers are essentially trying to engage with, right? They're brand owners or agencies or marketers. And so at least that's where their targets would be. And so this group that uses it puts it out into the world, and at a bare minimum, it's a print demonstration. At a bare minimum, it sets them apart as thought leaders. But on the other side, if you start to act a little bit like a publisher, you're creating leads, you're creating conversation if you execute on it right. So that's kind of what we've done. And so as we've done that, in fact, what's funny is we've had multiple printers who are our Connect clients who have eventually gone into other verticals and created their own content platform in specific verticals. And which underscores, if there's probably one thing that there's probably a lot of things that we'll talk about, but if there's one thing that I would underscore with the print community is that putting out content, it's not about who you send it to. It's about who you interview. And think about that, right? I
That's
tell
why I
this to
have you.
all. Well, but like I have clients in other verticals. So for example, I do a lot of work in higher education. So if I go out and interview colleges, right, and they've literally given me their insights that I can put into print. So the value is, sure, there's a value to send it out to the world and touch the marketplace, but there's another value that I've just had somebody give me their insights for free, and I've put their name in lights, so to speak. Isn't that a great way to develop a relationship? I mean, shame on us if we don't follow back up with that school and say, hey, we just interviewed the president of Marshall University. Well, my client should be walking right back in there going, I can't thank you enough for participating in our magazine. Love to hand walk out these. So now, right? And today, you and I talked a lot about this offline. How do you develop a relationship in today's world? It's super hard. We're more connected than ever before, but how do you do it? And so if you're creating content in the verticals or the segments that you really want to serve, that's just the easy way to start developing some of those relationships. So that's why, Connect has been great. And then it's born into some of this other stuff. And so it's just, like I said before, it's just a blessing.
Yeah, so I want to give a plug out to you and to anyone. So when I started doing it with you, one of the things that I really liked was you were selling it in different markets, but there was really no overlap because the printers were far enough apart. Right?
Right.
I mean, if a guy's going to send it out of town in another city, so be it.
Right.
But do you have any territories open for people?
We do. Yeah. We we don't really do a lot of selling of it because people have kind of come to us,
Right.
and which is great. And that allows us to kind of flip the script and vet them. I would never want to just push this on somebody. And I don't want that to sound arrogant. I just would say, if you're a marketing minded person who wants to start developing relationships and standing out, then why wouldn't you be putting out your own content? So yeah, we have we have some major metropolitan markets covered, but then there are a handful of others that are open. So yeah, absolutely.
So I only bring that up because, of course, I had a whole agenda of questions, and I'm not going to follow it, and I'm already going to the left and the right, and I'm all confused. But so I wanted to use that and talk about marketing because you're in marketing, and I think the number one biggest problem that printers to this day make is they don't market themselves. Now, I'm not talking about the good printers who are great at it and continuously doing it and finding new ways. I'm talking about the majority of printers who hear it and don't do anything to put themselves out there. Or, I think if you're a printer, you're doing a print campaign before you're doing an email campaign,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so I guess I'm a little tongue twisted right now. So I'm just going to ask you, what's your take on printers and why are they not marketing more? I mean, you deal with them, you know them, you talk to them. What's the problem? Why are they so thick and stubborn?
Well, why they don't do it probably needs to follow the first question is what's the cornerstone to marketing? And the cornerstone to marketing is segmentation. So that goes back. That's every textbook that's been written. That's all the gurus. You go back to the basics, which is you segment the world. Okay, I could go through the four P's of strategic marketing and the four P's of tactical marketing. But at the end of the day, when I partition off segments of the world, I start to prioritize who I want to serve. And then I create my tactical piece, which is my offering to them. But at some point, segmentation is the key. So who do you stand for? I think I told you the story offline about a young man I was talking to, and I had said I didn't ask him what he wanted to do. I asked him, who do you want to serve? That's how you stand out. And so that's the question, Warren, is not, that's the first question that precedes why they don't do it. Okay. You and I both know it's the immediacy of the moment. It's the gratification. Today I need to, well, I'm working in the business, right? I got to have the presses running now. I need the sale now. That's today, today, today. And so it takes time and energy to do this other stuff, the strategic piece. And so if I step away and I start to think, listen, I see a market, I see a group of people that I could engage with, and I want to be a part of that community. And I feel like my assets and what we do serves that well. When you ask printers today, do you serve verticals? They typically will say yes. And
They don't even know what it means.
well, and then you ask them why. And they might say, well, I'm in the higher education vertical. Why? Well, I have a higher education client. Well, you're not in the vertical. You haven't segmented the world. Now, look, that's a good start. I mean, if you have that client, then you should be doing everything you know or you can to understand them better, and then dovetail that over to other higher education clients or prospects and say, let me get in that. And so if you're in the vertical, it's not because you're selling them something. You're in the vertical because you're seeking understanding.
I was going to say you understand it.
Right. I'm at the associations. I have a client, a printer, who was a Connect client, and then went off and did something in the financial vertical, and really specific with credit union marketers, that type of stuff. And so, how do they get into this? I said, well, we go interview people. Let's go interview people, and at a minimum, you get an understanding of what keeps them up at night, right? And by the way, you could put one issue out and cut bait on it. And you could say, at least you have that understanding. But I'm going to tell you, years later, they're still doing it. And now they're big exhibitors at the American Bank Association marketing conference. And so they're in it. They're not spending all their time like, let me go on the cost side of my business and go to all the trade shows in the industry. So you can do that's important on some level. Why wouldn't I not go to where the clients are? And so I've said this for a long time, over a decade, and that is when a printer tells you, when you ask a print salesperson, who do you sell to? And they gleefully tell you that they sell to anybody who buys print, they mean nothing to no one. They are a commodity. And so that person that sits there and says, Mark, it's not so much what I sell, it's who I sell to. Let me tell you about the clients I have. And then you start to go, boy, they're all kind of the same. And so that person or that printer starts to mean something in that community. That's I could go on for that for half a day, right? But that's it. So segmentation is key. So now going back to your original question is, why are they not doing it? Because that takes a lot of time and energy and a lot of faith, right? So somebody says, listen, I want you to go out and develop the the business in the pharmaceutical community or in
Right.
the automotive, right? And then 6 months later, they're sitting there going, well, I'm just paying that person and I don't have
Well,
anything.
first of all, anyone who owns a company or printing, particularly, you have a salesperson. It's if they're new, it takes them 12 to 18 months to get going in the whole system. And if they're not new, it used to be 8 or 9 touches before you get somewhere with a client. It might be 12 and 13 now because of the way the world works, technology, and nobody picks up and no one's around. And the only way to really get to them, I think, is through print. And I hear what you're saying with the segmentation, and I think absolutely that comes. I'm going grass level to the average printer who doesn't know what the word segmentation means, but knows what marketing means or prints for other people. I ask printers, do you do any direct mail and for yourselves? And some say, yeah, we send out a few postcards. And I'm thinking, you're a moron. Actually, you're more like an idiot because you know that a couple postcards isn't going to get you any return. There's two things that we know, and you don't have to be super educated, right? You know that if you're not consistent, nothing happens. And it doesn't matter if it's a mailing or hockey practice or fishing on windy days. You have to know what to do. But I say to a printer, why are you not doing your own? Very simply, I said, go pull out 1,000 names. And I say this all the time. So people listening, if you've heard it before, repeat it to somebody else. Go pull out a list of 1,000 names within 4 miles of your business, right? Plan a 6 to 12 month direct mail campaign, a postcard, an insert, something with names on it, what you do, an offer. Don't do anything other. Use a designer that you print for. Barter with them for free printings because printing doesn't cost you anything. The print for the printer doesn't cost anything because either you have paper lying around, whatever. Your postage is 1,000 pieces is what, $1,000 a month for postage. If you pay the designer something, another $1,000, $1,500 for quick, easy design, and they're doing you a favor at that price. And then you're mailing it out, and every month you're touching 1,000 people. You could have a sales force of 20 people. They're not touching 1,000 people in a month. If whoever blows you off, blows you off. But what do we know about direct mail? You're going to get a 2-3% return of people inquiring. It's then your opportunity to turn them into accounts. If you have salespeople, you then have now leads for them because salespeople today, most of them are not finding their own leads, right? So rudimentary stuff. Why are they not doing it? It's not hard.
I don't disagree. I think at a core you should be doing. You can't go sell stuff that you don't actually do for yourself, right? So you should be able to say part of your sales process when you're trying to sell people on the merits of print or the merits of direct mail is to be able to walk in and say, we've done this for ourselves and the return has been X,
Well,
right?
sorry, I was going to say at the end of all of that, you then get to prepare your own case study with actual numbers, actual expenditures, and whether the return was huge or not, right? You've got your case study, you've done it, you could talk to them. If your returns weren't hot, you could come up with a story and talk to your customer about why they weren't and what you learned to do different. But you can't
Right.
lose by doing your own stuff. But you're going to spend 60 grand on a salesperson to sit around and do nothing.
Well, listen, I think that to me, you never throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? And if you look at there was an old Boston consulting group matrix, right? That looked at your business in a quadrants. And it was basically two axes. One was your market share and the other one was the market growth rate. And in essence, they had this bottom quadrant that had your business had low market share in it and it was a low growth market. It's what we call a dog. And so you just basically don't do anything with it, right? If you have business in that, you divest of it. Then you have this other one, which is it's a high growth market, but I have relative low market share. That's a question mark. So you have to kind of decide, am I going to be in or out? I got to make a decision. Then there's this other thing that says, I've got a lot of market share in a low growth market. That's what they call a cash cow. And what do you do to a cash cow? Well,
Milk
you
it.
milk it. Right. And what you do is you milk that. You milk that to feed these other opportunities, the question marks, and then the other quadrant, which is high growth. You have a lot of market share in a high growth market. That's a star. So I'm milking my cash cows to serve these other businesses or segments. And my point to a printer would be, you should be doing direct mail on the basics. You should be telling your salespeople that you love them. You should be giving them great training. They should be going out and doing what they're doing, sharpen the saw, so to speak, sending out direct mail saying, we're a great printer. This is the kind of stuff we do. Absolutely. But you should be using, that's kind of cash cow stuff, right? That's being a printer in the traditional sense and promoting that. You don't have to choose. It's not like I have to go, oh, let me go vertical strategy and abandon everything else. No. You do this very, very well and use that to incubate your opportunities into segments, because you and I know this, that a printer's business follows the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of their revenue, 80% of their profits, which, by the way, those can both be different, but 80% comes from 20. We know that. And so we know printers that are thriving, but they have a lot of eggs in a few baskets. And so my point is, you would say, well, there's a negative to that. Yeah, but then think about the positive. The silver lining is you have a different relationship with that group. You're deeper entrenched in that. They are higher profit margin because you have a deeper, more meaningful relationship. So why are you not seeking that? And the only way to seek that, in my opinion, is to get involved in that world, to get involved and to understand that. And that's the key. Now, the last thing I'll say about that, there is a challenge, right? So if I say I'm in Chicago and I'm going to the University of Illinois, and they're a client, and then I walk down the street and I knock on Northwestern's door, they might say, well, boy, you're marketing to the same community, right? So there is a geographic piece to it, but you don't have to define your verticals geographically. See, printers, the beauty of print is that it is geographical. So I can still do all that direct mail. I can take my sales force, I can put them in a city, and I can say, go around and find those marketing people and sell to them. But as I incubate these vertical strategies, I can actually get beyond the walls of the geography, right? I can say, well, I'm going to the University of Illinois here. It's almost like my Connect program, right? You can say, I'm going to do this with Illinois, but now I'm going out to Arizona and doing this. So that's where I think there's an opportunity to do exactly what you're saying, and that is to drive home on the tactical side the stuff that they've always done, to absolutely positively use print. I think the power of print is, I feel like I say this every few years, that you become this ambassador of print, if you will, and our argument for print has always been the wrong argument. I think people have always sat there and said, print's not dead. That's a terrible, terrible thing to say.
It's negative.
It's a negative thing.
You're using the word dead in your sentence.
Right. I mean, or, print's still viable. That's not an answer. Right?
Printing's alive.
Right. But even better than that, I mean, that's great. I love that. And I bought my copy. Is the ROI of print, what you were talking about earlier, in today's world? I mean, what you do digitally is gone in the blink of an eye.
It's even gone faster than that.
It's unbelievable.
Because you're on to the next page before you finish scrolling the page you're on, right?
100%.
It's I'm like, first of all, print doesn't go away. And I think, when I'm saying the direct mail, I'm really saying you get to market your company. You're the owner. You're keeping the database, so you have some control. And salespeople are absolutely important. The right ones who get it, not the deadbeats or the legends in their own mind and all those legacy people. But if you could feed them something, it keeps their motivation going, it keeps their passion going, it keeps their storytelling going, because they're
Hmm.
not bottoming out in what to do. I mean, we used to print different samples all the time, stickers with a theme. Different bathroom stickers with a joke, scented paper that smelled like chocolate, so we'd send people chocolates that were calorie free. Uh, and it was really, and I would say to salespeople, go bring some of the stuff we have. Don't ask if they have anything to quote. If you're top of mind, they will ask you, right?
100%.
And
100%.
if you're asking and they're telling you, oh yeah, you're the third printer quoting.
Yeah. I funny. My office is down the hall, and in my office, I just got a box full of goofy stuff. Like I send, I've probably hit you with it in the past, but I send goofy stuff. Now I also have some stuff that I is the center of how we are, and core beliefs, if you will. So like I got a little sign right now that talks about, I have a big thing that I always talk about, be the buffalo, right? So be the buffalo is that old Indian proverb that a buffalo charges through the storm and a cow runs from it. And so I have these little street signs made up, and they sit on people's desks. And so,
Cool.
so there's the messaging, but I do it. And I got to tell you this quick story. And that is because it's from my mother, who was a realtor. And I grew up in a little town, and she started her business kind of late, and had never really done anything in business. And so she started it late, and she used to just every year she would wrap up. And I remember doing the work for her, these tomato plants, and we put them and everybody in all these neighborhoods, and we put them on their doorstep. And so to this day, I still do that. So when I do these giveaways or something like that, I'm trying to stay top of mind, but I'm also trying to do the right thing. And I think print does that. I think when you print something,
It's emotional.
it is emotional, and it shows you care. It actually shows
You've taken the
that
time, you've made the effort.
100%. So my point would be to any seller out there, they should be so enthusiastic about their conversations with prospects and saying, tell me how you are connecting with the marketplace, right? And if they ever said, well, I don't really use print because it costs too much, that my response would be, don't you want them to know you care? Why would you not want to stand out? Because in today's world, in God's green earth can you stand out digitally, socially? But if you put something printed that's done well and is thoughtful in front of somebody, you've just connected. And we know, obviously the number one way we interpret the world is through touch, but you've just connected on a deeper level, short of being able to walk into their office and shake their hand, which you and I both know you can't do anymore.
It's harder.
Yeah, it's a lot harder. And I think, that's one of the challenges for any B2B business, is being more connected than we ever are as human beings, but actually less connected, if that makes sense. And because this technology keeps us at bay, it allows us to cocoon ourselves and stay away, so to speak. And that means the gatekeeper, there's no more gatekeepers in this world, because technology is the gatekeeper.
Can't schmooze up the receptionist anymore.
Right. So how do you do it? That's, I will say I'm very proud of the fact that that's what we do. Like, I'm not selling them anything. When I say, hey, Warren, I got an article, I'd love to get your insights on it. They're more than happy to do it and share their insights, because I'm giving value for free. So we live in a freemium world, what's called a freemium world. You have to give value before you get value. So how does a seller walk in and say, the only value in a cold introduction would be price. Like, I can lower your price.
Or
And
or
sales,
or the personality of the person that's making them laugh, smile, or engage with them, right?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. There's a
Right.
depth. There needs to be a depth to the relationship, and that comes over time. I
Correct.
mean, relationships are not born in an instant, and so you got to be careful. That goes back to that cash cow thing. Are there some transactional business that you can garner? For sure. But if you back in a former life, I remember talking to the sales team, and we were selling paper, and we had this low priced paper come in, and I had said to them, we're not going to sell this product above a certain price. Now, understand that seems odd to them. So if I said, listen, you can sell this product no higher than $50, they would say, well, that doesn't make any sense. What if I can get 54 for it? And I would say, well, there's another brand that you would, right? There's another brand structure that I would want you to sell this other thing. I don't want you to do that. And I remember this one salesperson in front of a whole room said, I need to eat, and so I need to sell for 12 more years. I get 12 more years till retirement. I mean,
So why
and
can't you sell the other paper?
I said, you're not going to last 12 months. A salesperson does not exist for price. They do not exist for a lower price.
Well, you're not a salesperson. You're an order taker.
I can do that on my own.
Correct.
And any thoughtful printer out there could say, I don't need to do that. What is the value? And it's very hard. You talk about personality and relationship. That goes back to my thought is that if you're in a world, a segment, and that segment could be defined demographically, geographically, psychographically, it could be verticals or by zip code, whatever. But you have to define a group that you can get on an elevator and tell people this is who I stand for. One of the stories I've always told, or one of the anecdotes I've said, is that I have a brother who moved from Merrill Lynch over to Morgan Stanley as a financial guy. And he said, he sent me a presentation when he first got there. And he said, hey, you want to look at this presentation and tell me what you think? And it was done by their corporate people, and it was all beautiful and blah, blah, blah. And I said, he said, what do you think? And I said, it sucks. And I said, I'm not the guy to tell you. I mean, I could, I'm sure it's pretty and all that stuff, but I said, it sucks. And he said, well, why? I said, it's 9 slides about you. It's 9 slides about Morgan Stanley. Only on the last slide do you say, well, we serve the rich, essentially. I said, that doesn't make any sense. I said, if you got on the elevator and there was a guy in a 10-gallon hat who was the theoretical whale, and he somehow turns to you and say, Warren, you're a financial planner. He says, Warren, what do you do? And he says, well, I'm a certified financial planner for Morgan Stanley. He mentally gets off at the next floor. But if you respond to him and say, well, Bob,
we
it's not
help
so much
people.
It's not what I do, it's who I do it for. Let me tell you about my clients. And then he says, and once he hears that it's a demographic, psychographic, there's adventure seekers or whatever, that person has the choice to say, that either sounds nothing like me, thanks for talking, see you later, or that sounds exactly like me, we should talk, or even better, that sounds exactly who I want to become. And so why are we not instilling that level of professionalism into our efforts across sales and marketing across the board?
So, you know what I see every day? And I'm amazed at this. I'm amazed. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. I love the platform. I don't understand why salespeople are not creating their profiles to be outgoing and engaging and wanting people to look at you. So, I've told the story before, but I don't know how many people are actually listening to me all the time. But I was asked to, I went to a company to present, talk about, somebody was going to this company. They asked me to come along and they said, would you talk about sales? And I said, sure. And before I went, I sat down at LinkedIn and I looked up all of their 30 something plus salespeople. And I went to all their profiles because I was trying to make my presentation a little bit on like 1 or 2 of these profiles. And at the end of the day, I was in complete, utter shock. I would go to these salespeople's profiles. I'd go to their contacts. No company email, no cell phone number, maybe a Gmail. Well, Gmail tells me you're looking for another job if you don't have your company email there, right? Anyways, I go through the whole thing and I'm just in awe. Awe. Anyways, I go to the presentation. I'm standing there. I get up. The CEO is in the room, and I was kind of like, I came here because I wanted to talk about selling, and I looked at all your LinkedIn. I don't think any of yous are ready yet to sell. Like the abouts were I, not what you do,
Mm-hmm.
right? I said to them, I said, first of all, what have you all been doing during COVID? That's where the honing in on the Zoom calls come, the better camera, the better presentation, the better image, the better interaction. I said, everybody was on LinkedIn. Didn't you have time to fill it out? I said, let me ask you a question. What do you do when you're going to go see a customer? You check out their website, you check out their LinkedIn, you put in their name in Google and see what comes up on the first 2 pages, make sure that they're not in any bad way because you don't want to go. I said, you don't think when you make the phone call, they're going to look at you? You don't have a company name. You don't have a banner. You're not even smiling in your picture. You're killing yourself before you even start. I don't
Right.
understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I look at it like there's a great opportunity, and there's a great opportunity for organizations like printers, small to mid-sized B2B, really having a marketing backbone and connecting it with sales, right? In any organization, sales and marketing is really in silos and sometimes clashing.
But a lot of salespeople like the title of sales and marketing.
They do, but
it doesn't work.
Here's one other challenge that I see, probably in business in general, that has in the B2B space where you use a sales force. Historically, even today in 2025, which is stunning, a salesperson looks at their clients as their clients, and that the printer has given them license to use the name, if you will, and use their assets. And so what happens is, as an organization, that salesperson never brings back the data, the market data, to a central intelligence, because you could say, well, they're busy, they're doing their thing, but they don't, in essence, they won't bring it back, because why exactly does the company want to know all these details about the client, right? This is my client, and they feel like there's leverage. So how do you create
so
that?
they could better serve them is the real answer as to why.
That's the right answer, right? So you have to, so culturally, they can't fear that you're going to use the data against them. Now, at the same time, if the data of a client, right, you bring back the data, and this client is all price oriented, then ultimately you could say this model of engagement doesn't work. I can't have a commission based seller, because your people are your best asset. They're your highest paid asset.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, I don't need to be using them at the top of the funnel. That's the problem. When you use your salespeople at the top of the funnel, that's not right, because you're using your highest priced asset at the broadest.
Your CSRs could handle those cookie cutter quotes and speak to clients even. Like,
you can create models for segments.
Correct.
This goes back to it, that says, so Warren, you're my top salesperson. I don't need you to be servicing a client that is simply going to be buying on RFPs. It's purely price. I get it, and we can process that over to a new model, and maybe you've garnered them, and maybe there's a smaller percentage, but I need you working with the big dogs, the deep relationships that are the 20 that feed the 80. And that's where you start to say, if you really have a central marketing intelligence, you can get these sellers, the best of the best, doing even the things like you were talking about, the tactical pieces on LinkedIn, and the right messaging that we, right. And there's a solidified front, if you will, because I don't know, in today's world, I would want to be dealing with someone who is as professional and sophisticated, and I would want to know that there's a whole company, right, that's supporting me.
Well, old school salespeople thought they owned the account no matter what,
Right.
right? Um, I think that started changing maybe 15 years ago, maybe even a little longer, maybe a little shorter. I, with my salespeople, used to say to them, "Hey, why don't you make some appointments with some of your clients? I'd like to go with you and meet them." And half of them would do it right away, would book me up. The other half, every day, I'd be saying, "Do you have an appointment yet? Do you have an appointment yet?" And then I would say, "You know what? If you can't get the appointment, I'll call and I'll go. All I really want to do is thank them for their business, make sure we're taking care of them. I get to say things to the client that you can't say because I'm the owner. They appreciate when the owner president comes to see them. They'll say more to me than they would to you, anyways, right?" And the number one reason why the salespeople don't want you to go with them is because they're not selling everything your company does.
Right.
From what my
Right.
experience is. So when I say to the person, "Hey, does Jack talk to you about our large format that we just brought in and we're doing?" And she's like, you could see on her face, she doesn't want to get the guy in trouble or the girl, right? But you could see on the face right away that there's a bit of a cover up going on right now. And then I
For
get to
sure.
say, "Listen, here's my card." And the other thing I'm doing, if you're an owner and you're listening, is I'm multi-level selling. I make sure that I know other people in the company, not just the salespeople in our top accounts. Because if
Right.
the salesperson goes, I'm making the call right away to that person to get in, so you don't lose a
Right.
beat. And
Yeah.
lastly, companies today don't necessarily follow salespeople like they used to because there's too much invested in with the printer getting to where you need to get to meet certain requirements and targets, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that story is awesome. And because it reminded me of a story when I was a lot younger. And now, look, today it's hard. We talked, and I think there's a whole other challenge here, and that is, how do you actually get that physical in-person meeting? That's hard. I think it's harder than ever been before in history. And yet, so that's where we talked about the content. But your story reminded me of when I was a corporate, what the field would have said, a corporate suck, back at Unisource. I'll never forget this. And I was yammering on to the sales manager down in Atlanta, and I was said, I really, really want to go make calls. And, none of the salespeople wanted to take me out. Who is this? And I was a lot younger. So who's this young corporate suck who thinks, whatever.
Knows what he's doing.
And this guy took me out, and he said, and the sales manager took me out. And I swear to God, we were pulling up into the place, and he just doesn't want me to say, that's just like you. He does not want me to say it. He said, "Listen, this guy's got 10 minutes for us. I promise you. So we're in and out." I said,
You were
"Okay,
there an
okay."
hour, I bet.
I was there for 2 hours, and I said I had to leave. And the guy, I'll never forget, like, this was awesome. And this cat he was stunned. Now understand, I probably don't have skin in the business, right? But that's where we need to be. We talked offline about some societal stuff, and to me, you have to do the right things. You have to let go of yourself and ask them about their business. I'll never forget, I asked the first question. I said, "How do you make money?" And
The guy,
I looked over. He was rolling his eyes. The sales manager, he's like, "Oh my
he's
God."
going to kill the
And
account.
he went on forever. And but now listen, if you're actively listening, you're like, "Well, tell me about this." So it's just like what I do today with content. People want to share their wisdom. In addition, it also allows them to think differently. It gets them out of the business thinking differently. And I think that's what salespeople can do. This is the last anecdote. When I first started, when I left Unisource, I drove up to Mohawk, and I had been in paper side and I had dealt with all these guys. So here I am, I'm looking for advertising, right? And here I am about to do a magazine that's all about print sales. It's just sales, right? And I walk into the account to people I know because I call her and say, hey, I'm doing this. Oh my God, I love entrepreneurial stuff. Come on up and see us. I walked in and I sat down and I sat there and told her everything that I was going to do. And I remember thinking to myself, I got to get this sale, right? I got to get this thing going, right? So imagine you're starting, this is a big risk and you're going to do this. And I got to get this sale. Warren, I was soaked in sweat. And a guy who speaks in front of hundreds, thousands of people, I walked out of there. They never bought from me, by the way, because it's like, dating. They could smell desperation from a mile away. And I walked down and I'm like, what the hell just happened? And I did a diagnostic and I was like, all I could think about was me. All I could think about was me. And so if you remember our offline conversation, that's the trick. It's hard. And it's just like saying, as a business, we've got to incubate these verticals. It's going to take time. The relationship's going to take time. There's an investment level. And so think about this. This is the last, I promise listening. I said, once you've done successful stuff in a vertical, for example, and you're sitting there basking in the glow of your business and these big relationships, why do you not look back and go, boy, that took a lot of time? And why am I not incubating some other places right now? Right? We all say it's not paying off immediately, which goes back to your first question. It's not paying me immediately. And so we don't do it. And that's the thing. You got to commit to the right stuff. So there's my soapbox. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So okay, couple things, because no, it's all good. So we used to practice with the team, everybody elevator pitches, right?
Yeah.
Why? Because you need to have your story in you that at any given moment you could just spit out something quickly when asked without fumbling or blah, 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 right? And for some people it was easy and for some people it wasn't. But if you didn't practice and you didn't think about it, you didn't have it, it was no good. I used to love when the elevator closed and I'd be going up to the 50th floor and I would turn around and I go, oh my God, a captive audience. And I would go into my print spiel and half the elevator probably thought I was an idiot. And the other half thought, wow, I like this, something to do during the ride. And you only have a limited amount of time before you do that, right? The other thing is when you're talking about going into the meeting and just talking I. So same, maybe relevant, maybe not, but when I'm dating, because I'm unfortunately single, and I go out, all I keep saying to myself is, there's no I in this conversation. How are you doing? What are you doing? What do you do for fun? Let them ask me the questions and then I'll answer them however. But I will not say me. Right? Because it
100%.
doesn't take you anywhere. I had a sales manager, just a funny one. Sales manager, we're in the car one day and we're driving somewhere and the phone rings and I answer it and the person says, oh, I'm sorry, wrong number. And I go, wait. I said, hang on a second. I said, let's take this wrong number and make something of it. I said, what do you do? I said, because I'm in the printing business. And the guy's cracking up. And he says, oh my God, he says, I don't buy print, but I wish I did. I've never been solicited before on a wrong number. Right? So we have a funny little conversation. We hang up. What do you think my sales manager says to me?
What are you doing?
You don't expect me to do that, do you?
Right. Exactly. Listen, you don't see the pretty girl across the room walk over to her and say, I just saw you across the room and I thought I'd come over and tell you about me. Right. I mean, there's got to be a curiosity. And I think that's a tough thing to do. It's a tough thing to let go of, but because we are selfish creatures, but that's a critical component. The other thing that I was thinking when you were talking, it reminded me is, we took the ability to tell stories is also a vertical strategy. It's being able to name drop, right? I had a guy once say to me, can you look at my website? And this is years ago. And he had tabs on his website. And I said, sure, I'm not a web guy. I can't, I have people, but I said, what do you think? So I looked at it. I said, okay, well, what do you think is the most important tab on your site? And he said, the solutions tab. And I said, nah, it's the client tab. The first place I went was to see who you're doing business with. And so that's just name dropping. If I walk into Arizona State University and I say, we just did this whole program at Northwestern University out of Chicago, and you've got their attention. And so when you're in this vertical strategy, it allows you to name drop. It allows you to tell stories. And telling stories says, just like print, allows you to say, I have experiences. I'm out in the world. I'm not just tactically calling you and going, hey, you got any print? We do. And what's I got to tell you, I still to this day get these calls. I just recently got somebody who basically sent me an email and sent and said, hey, we have really high quality printing, great prices, customer. I thought,
And we'll beat any price before they know you.
but my God, so what, they want to print canvas? And I'm thinking,
No.
I've had people who've called me before, and I swear to God, this is a true story. I had a guy once call me, and I asked him, he was telling me, he said, yeah, and somehow he got through to me, and I was like, all right. He said, what, he's telling me about pricing and customer service. I said, well, have you, do you get the magazine? And he says, no. I said, have you read the magazine? I swear to God, he says, no.
Doesn't
I
even
said,
lie.
dude,
Doesn't even lie.
I said, read the magazine, and I hung up. Everything we do in Canvas talks about this, and the greatest salespeople out there are businesses unto themselves, and they do some of this marketing. I think the key for the printing organizations is to really get that central marketing intelligence and align it with this idea. Again, it's not an either or. It's not a black or white. It is, let's do the stuff that is we're ambassadors to print. Let's promote the ROI of print, and let's do that with great professionalism, but let's simultaneously incubate some ideas and being part of a community, and that's I think the great opportunity.
So again, I've said this story before, but obviously I'm going to keep saying it because I don't think people actually listen and hear it. I once remember reading a fishing magazine, and the editor in the front signed off editor and angler. And I thought, oh my God, that is the greatest thing I've ever heard in my life. Forget that I'm a passionate fisherman. I then went back to the office, redesigned our business card, and under my name, it said founder and fisherman. But then I went out, and every single person in the company got a business card with their title and their hobby/passion. Even the pressman. Now, he didn't get an email address, but he got the card. Why? First of all, everyone should feel part of the team. No one should feel left out. The cost to me was zero to do that. The return of team members' participation, feeling part of the community, off the charts. But the most important thing is that is single-handedly probably the best icebreaker you're ever going to have when you meet someone and you hand them your card and they look at it, right?
Sure.
And I'm going to give you the best example. I get an appointment with the CEO of major retailer, like with 1,000 doors and whatnot. And I'd met him before I knew him, and I actually called him up, and he agreed to 15 minutes, right? So I went into his office, and I really usually do not get intimidated by a lot of things. And I'm sitting down at the front of his desk in a chair, and a big long desk, and he's standing in front of me, and I hand him my card, and he looks at it and he goes, "Do you mean flounder and fisherman?" right? And I went, yes. My voice cracked. It was like Fred Flintstone sitting in front of Mr. Slate, right?
Right.
In the Flintstone days, and my voice cracked. And I went, yes. And he said, so you really like fishing? And I said, yes. And at the same time, I'm scanning his walls because I see he's done ski trips. And but then he flips the computer around and he says to me, I just came back from out west and I was on a salmon trip. We spent an hour talking about the fishing. And then I brought in the skiing and where does he ski and his family and whatever. I kid you not, he called in 2 senior VP marketing people after. I met with them. I did business with one for a little while. But that guy will never forget me. We didn't even talk business for the first hour. It was fish, ponds, streams, and ski hills, right? All because my assistant had her card that said, whatever, executive assistant and Bible worshiper or something, right? I don't know if I was so crazy to have that on the card, but you know what? People would call and her email and they would have conversations. And it was just, it was, the wall came down and it was engaging. Others were soccer dad, football, whatever it was. And I tell people all the time, and I don't see anyone going and doing it.
Well, again, I think, didn't you have, what's your logo? What's your logo of a fish hook?
No, the current one now is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me see.
So right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that's, I mean, in essence, if you were still a printer, you could, in fact, say to the world, I serve fishing brands, right? I mean, right? Because it's a world that you're familiar with. You could get into it. I understand how to market and, fishing. I'm in that community, right? So that to me would be a great way. So it's like saying I'm defining myself because look, to decide, the Latin root of decide is to cut off. When you decide I'm going to do this, that means you've cut off other opportunities. So there is when you decide to be in a vertical, there are other verticals that you might choose or you choose to not work with. Doesn't mean you can't, but as a business, you can have people specifically,
you're making
right?
decisions and plans, right?
Yeah. So I'd be like, well, all right, Warren, so here's the deal. I want you to, you might sell some print over here, but I want you to incubate. I want you to talk to all the fishing brands out there. I want to eventually be printing Field and Stream magazine. I want to be, I want to do all the marketing for Ugly Stick or whatever. So, you know what I'm saying? So, and you can say, listen, we're from here. We're from here. And that's the beauty of it. So
even today, my title still says a founder and fisherman or just fish somewhere in there. I can't tell you how many people fish or have fished with a grandmother or a grandfather or have a story to tell me about when they were younger.
for sure.
But that's always the first thing that comes up. And then when they tell you the story, how you listen and your attention and your excitement and whatever you could follow up with questions, conversations takes you down a different path than just trying to talk about print because nobody gives a shit about print. It's a byproduct. Like when you're trying to go out there, the relationship print's the byproduct of it. It's not the other way around. They want to know you before that. And it's great.
It's a great tool to build that relationship. I think that's it. I will say this, I feel like there's a great opportunity because of the way the world is right now, because of the digital fatigue, because of AI, because of all this, there's remarkable opportunity to connect on a more human level. I think there's more opportunity to listen and engage outside of the digital. I do think there's a tremendous amount of fatigue. I think AI is something that it's the latest thing, but we're going through a trough of disillusionment with that. It's only going to be dominated by a few players. And so it's a tool, but
by the way, I was going to say while I was waiting for you it's a tool. We must always say that. It's just a tool. And even Chad at the bottom says, check this, it might be wrong.
Right. 100%. It does not, what it can't do is it can't go interview Warren. It can't go get your insights. It can't connect with you that way. And it can probably take what you've said and write it, but it can't go interview you,
There's no
quote it,
feeling.
put it. There's no story there.
Right.
So that's the thing. So there's a great, I guess the last thing, that is it. I think there's an opportunity maybe greater than ever before, for a level of authenticity that print gets, that we as humans need to do. Business is still done that way. And I know that sounds cliche, like business is still about relationships, but even more so, those who can figure out how to open a door, we've been blessed to be able to do that. But then to be able to walk through and listen authentically and take yourself and put aside, I just feel like there's a great opportunity for people.
I always think that opportunity is available because there's not enough people doing it. So you
Right.
get to stand out automatically, right?
Right.
When you speak to someone, you ask them how they are. Don't tell them how you are. Ask them
Right.
how. Listen, I used to have customers. Even I'd have tickets to the Canadians, which if you came up, I would have taken you.
Oh man.
But I could still do that if you want to come up. I have friends with tickets.
Yeah.
But I sometimes after a while, you don't even want to go with your customers out, right? You want to just go home. And I would say to my customers, "Hey, I got tickets to the Habs game tonight. You can go with me, or you could take your son." I said, "And you want to rub knees with me? It's okay." I said, "But I'm almost positive your son would appreciate it more than me and you." And you could see on their face the appreciation because no one's going to ask you for the tickets to take their son.
For sure.
Right.
For sure.
So,
but it's also going to garner you.
Yes.
Say, take your son. Let me poke in tomorrow, and I'll take you to lunch and tell me all about it.
Call me after, whatever. Yeah, it continues
right.
it, but you're doing it in a nice way,
100%,
and in a thoughtful way. There's not enough thoughtfulness out there, right? But anyways, it's kind of crazy. So we've hit the hour mark. We kind of got stuck on one little roundabout, which was fine actually because it is an important one. And
which you would that. I mean, you couldn't have. There's no possible way you and I could get through 5 questions. It would take
3 days,
2.5 days, 2 days.
3 days if we stop to eat. Right?
That's right.
But
That's right.
Meaningful conversation, and I just hope whoever's listening or made it to the end, that you've taken it in and you've actually listened to what was said, because there's a few points in there that you could take out and you could help change the way you do business or the way your company does business, because now's the time to make those changes.
Absolutely.
So
yeah,
we're going to have you back on another time, but anything
I'd love to.
Anything you want to end with before I cut the power?
I think I appreciate you having me on. I think it's like I said, I think there's great opportunity. I think there is no substitute for optimism.
Or print. There's no substitute for print.
I really do. I believe print is. I just love it. And I had a friend who once said, if I had one day to live, I would want to talk to you. I would want to talk to you about print. And I said, well, why is that? And he said, because it would last forever. So.
Okay, so you're the only guy who loves print more than me.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
So we're equal.
Mutual admiration society.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, folks. I'm not going to add another word to this conversation. I'm just going to say thanks for listening. Want to be on the show? Give me a call. You want to hear about something? Give me a call and I'll look into it. Other than that, always appreciate all of you. And just go out there, sell some print or do something good for somebody and, make the world a better place. That's it. Warren Werbitt, Printing's Alive. Until next time. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Warren. Appreciate it.